Hello, and welcome to this short video on using high-risk isolation in our Edge SWG, formerly Proxy SG. My name is David Griffith, and I am a Senior Network Security Technologist here at Symantec. A newer feature in Edge SWG is high-risk isolation. You may have heard of it or about it, but are you using it? It is a feature that is easy to use and configure with many benefits for the organization and end user. And as an Edge SWG user, you are entitled to it. High-risk isolation, or HRI, is sometimes referred to as web isolation. I'm going to show you how to quickly configure it and then show it in action. First, in order to use high-risk isolation in Edge SWG, you must have SGOS V7.3.x or later. You also must have an SSL intercept policy to isolate HTTPS requests. Optionally, you must have Management Center 1.1.3.1 or later. Here, I'm going to include Management Center in my demo for you today. Here I am in Management Center, and I'm going to launch the Proxy Admin Console by going into Network, right-clicking on my Proxy SG, and clicking Launch Console. On the Configure Proxy SG window, I'm going to click Configure to access my console inside Proxy SG. Across the top, I'm going to click on Administration, and in the section Data and Cloud Services, I have a feature called Isolation, and it's starred here for me that I'm going to select. Notice here that I'm going to configure high-risk isolation, or isolation as the window shows. If isolation is disabled, simply move the slider to the right to enable isolation. On the destination type, I'm selecting SymC Isolation Service. This is because we are connecting to the default cloud service. Custom would be for specialized use cases, such as purchasing and having a full web isolation tenant. When I have a full web isolation tenant, the customer would have more control over the policy and have better visibility on the activity and more granularity. When using the default isolation service, we can clear the headers for HRI, as HRI does not apply the custom policy or log users. HRI is a shared service hosted and managed by Broadcom. This is why sending the user headers won't benefit the customer, as the policy and activity logs are not accessible for the customers. The SSL issuer keyring is the certificate authority used for SSL inspection on traffic that will be isolated. It should be trusted by the clients, and in most cases would be the same keyring used for standard SSL inspection. The server CCL should be left at the default, as this is what is used to verify the SSL tunnel that is created between the Edge SWG and the isolation service. This SSL verifies that the proxy is connected or is connecting to the correct service, and a built-in client certificate is used on the proxy side for the tunnel. Now, I'm going to jump over to my Visual Policy Manager, or VPM if you will, so we can configure a web isolation policy with some rules. By default, there is no web isolation layer. I need to add a web access layer and name it Web Isolation. It should be after the SSL inspection and authentication before any web access layers that might apply. I click on the Add Layer button, and the Add Layer window appears where I can scroll down and select Web Access, and then I can click Add. Next, I need to rename it or give this an applicable name by typing in Web Isolation and clicking OK. I now have my new Web Isolation layer, and I need to add two rules to this layer, one for URL risk levels 5 through 10, and one for uncategorized URLs. Next, I'm going to click on this Add Rule on the right to add our first rule to this policy. I'm going to click on the Any under Destination in my rule and click Set. In the Set Destination Object window, I'm going to click on Add a New Object here in the upper right and scroll to Find Request URL Threat Risk Level. We're going to create a rule for a threat risk level of between 5 and 10. Once I click on this, a new window appears. It's here where I can use the slider to define a threshold for a given risk level by moving the slider from left to right or from right to the left. Or I can move both sides to find the threshold that I'm trying to define. First, I want to give this a more appropriate name by modifying the N to say 5 to 10. Next, I'm just going to move the slider from left to right to the number 5 and leaving the right side at 10 since we are creating this to have a risk level of 5 to 10. I'm leaving the options below to be between bounds, and it is inclusive of my threshold of 5 and 10. I'll then click Apply. Now you can see the object I just created and defined, so I can click Set. We are not done with this rule yet because I have to define or set the action. We are not denying or blocking this. We're going to let isolation determine what to do. So I click on the deny under action and click set from the drop-down list. Next, I scroll down and select Web Isolation from the list and click set. We have just defined our first rule. We are not done yet. We're going to add a second rule for this. Because proxy and isolation both use Symantec's Global Intelligence Network to categorize millions of websites, it's the uncategorized websites we have to create a rule for. Again, I'm going to click on Add Rule on the right. Then, on this new rule under Destination, I'm going to click on Any and then select Set from the drop-down list. On the Set Destination Object window, I'm going to click on Add a New Object in the upper right and select Request URL Category from the drop-down list. On the Request URL Category window, I have to select Uncategorized. It is under Blue Coat, so I have to expand Blue Coat here and select Uncategorized. We're also going to change the name to reflect this, so I give it the name Uncategorized and I click Apply. Next, we have to define the action. Just as before, click on the Deny under Action and click Set from the drop-down list. I'll scroll down and select Web Isolation from the list, and then I'll click Set. We have just created two rules for this isolation policy, as you can see here. In order for these to work, I need to click on the Apply Policy right here, and then confirm it by clicking OK. If everything worked correctly, I should get the policy installation was successful displayed right here. Now, I can open a new tab and navigate to our test site to see if these work. When I go to our test site and select option 6, Exercise Caution, I can see that this is being isolated based on our isolation service. It has a red bar above the Symantec logo, indicating that this is an isolated site. If I do a Control-U to get into looking at the source code for the page, I can see it truly is isolated. Now, if I go back to my test site and under Categories, Test Pages, I can select Uncategorized, and I can see that this is also isolated by the red bar across the top. Doing the same Control-U to see the source code for the page again, I can see the site is being redirected to isolation. I hope you found this demonstration useful, and thanks for watching this video on high-risk isolation with SWG, formerly Proxy SG.